Well, it is election day in the United States. Polling has begun in the midterm elections, and Vermont was the first U.S. state to open its polling stations. Polling has begun in New York and Kentucky as well. It is the first time that America is heading to the polls since Donald Trump's entry into the White House. More than 35 million voters have already cast their votes in the early polls on Monday. This year's number easily eclipses that of 2014, when less than 20 million early voters had gone to the polling stations on the day before the midterm elections. Majorities in both houses of the U.S. legislature, the House of Representatives and the Senate, hangs in the balance. The major focus of the Republican Party's campaign has been on immigration. As for the Democrats, it was health care. Barack Obama spearheaded the Democratic Party's campaign. According to some opinion polls, Democrats could fare well in the House of Representatives. Remember, they just need to flip 23 seats to secure the majority in the lower house of the U.S. Congress. History says that midterm elections to the House of Representatives have mostly gone against the incumbent party. And for the Democrats, it could help that Trump's approval ratings are low as well. But the picture is not the same in the Senate, the upper house of the U.S. Congress. It may be difficult for the Democrats to wrest the Senate in spite of the fact that the Republicans are only holding the slim 51-49 majority here. If the Democrats manage to win back at least one of the two houses, it could significantly impact the Trump administration. First, the Democrats would be able to block key legislation proposed by Donald Trump. Second, investigations could be launched on almost everything possible if they do win a majority. And joining us to talk a little bit more about the midterm elections in the United States is Simon Marks, who joins us now from Washington. Simon Marks, thanks very much for talking to us this evening. Now, do you think that this is, in a sense, going to be a referendum on Donald Trump and the Republicans, as he himself has said throughout the campaign, and the initial numbers, of course, showing that many people are actually reaching the polling booth? What does that mean?
Yes, absolutely. Without question, this is a referendum on Donald Trump's presidency. He has himself described it in those terms, and he's really made it a referendum on his presidency, not just by addressing rallies in predominantly safe Republican parts of the country, but also by raising that issue of the immigration caravan from Latin America that he falsely claims is about to engage in an invasion of the United States. He's deployed 7,000 U.S. troops to the border with Mexico, even though that caravan is still weeks away from arriving at the American borders. You spoke about the turnout. We're all eager to see the extent to which Republicans and Democrats are able to drive their voters to the polls. Certainly, the early voting numbers suggested that there's a real determination on the part of voters to register their views at this election, but we don't really know what that means. Does it mean that Democrats are absolutely determined to stop Donald Trump in his tracks and turn him into a lame duck in the White House? Or, alternatively, does it indicate that Republican voters are heeding the warning that Donald Trump has given them, that radical Democrat socialists are planning to take over America? We simply won't know until the votes are counted in several hours' time.
Well, absolutely, Simon Marks. You are saying essentially that we don't know what the real vote really means here. But if the Democrats were to win a significant number in the House of Representatives, what sort of impact would that have on the economy, on healthcare, on obviously other issues that that are close to Donald Trump and his administration?
If the polls are correct and the Democrats take control of the House of Representatives, but the Republicans narrowly hang on to control of the Senate, life becomes more complicated for Donald Trump because you, of course, need support in both houses of Congress to advance your agenda and govern. But life specifically may become more complicated for President Trump because the Constitution says impeachment proceedings against a president begin in the House of Representatives. So if the Democrats are in the majority there, they will have the opportunity, if they choose to exercise it, to go after President Trump personally, try to impeach him over ties between his campaign and the Russians, perhaps other ethics violations that they allege that he has perpetrated while in office. So certainly for President Trump, life becomes more complicated, but equally, the Democrats in the House of Representatives become more of a target for Donald Trump's rhetoric, and Donald Trump loves nothing more than having a target.
Well, absolutely. Well, that's pretty much right, Simon Marks. But my last question to you then, you were talking about, of course, the impeachment process, if that was to begin at all. And, of course, you know, the allegations of interference by the Russians. Now, Facebook, we believe, has removed more pages as the FBI has warned of another Russian threat. Is that still a credible threat in these midterm elections as well?
Yes, and I think that's why the outcome of these elections are so hard to predict. You remember back in 2016, all the pollsters were confidently predicting Hillary Clinton was going to become president. Even on election day, the New York Times probability index had her at 90% probability of becoming president. And then we were all amazed that Donald Trump had won. There are imponderables this time around. Possible interference by Russia and maybe other governments internationally, attempts to suppress voter turnout in some parts of the country, orchestrated in some places by Republicans, in other places by Democrats. It all adds up to a highly unpredictable and volatile situation here. So the votes will be counted in, what, about 12 hours' time. I would advise everybody to stay tuned.
Well, Simon Marks, we're counting down to the last 12 hours then. And thanks very much for talking to us. A pleasure there. Simon Marks joining us there from Washington. Thanks indeed.